can answer any questions about the ice storm situation, and we can go through and kind of walk through all the things that are going to be happening, and we'll discuss what you can expect for the just next couple of hours and into tomorrow. What I do want to stress is that today is fine. We have these alerts that go into effect tonight, and the ice situation is going to be developing overnight past like midnight tonight. So that's one thing I do want to stress, that if you need to do any preps today, you have the time for it. What I also want to stress is the fact that I understand that there are people that are going to have to work tomorrow. There are obviously our essential workers, and there are people that are going to have to be out on the streets tomorrow. Ideally, we will get fewer people on the roads, and we have, just some the people that need to be out there, and we can avoid having crashes and such, and more crews having to be out there than needed. And the other thing too is that we're talking about that we have a period of time here that's going to go from midnight tonight until noon, 1 p.m. tomorrow for some spots, and then it'll be a little later in others. And it's a 12 to 16-hour period maybe where it'd be best to just hang inside. It's not going to take the entire weekend away, and you don't need to feel the need to completely stock up on things, but understand if you need to get some things done today, totally fine. But we are going to at least have some quiet time as well. Right now, we do have some of these alerts that are out, of course, and the ice storm warning is covering a portion of the area. This is where some of the higher amounts of ice are expected, and it's a combination of kind of just the timing of everything, as well as the area where we'll have some of those colder temperatures, and that where ice accumulation will be at its higher points. And this is also the zone where the power outages could be more common. So we have winter weather advisories and the ice storm warnings out. So everyone has some sort of impact here. It's just a question of the slight variations in the amounts. So this all goes into effect late tonight into tomorrow, and that's when we'll start to see the impacts from this. And the freezing rain will begin as we head into this evening. And after midnight, roads start to become slick. The travel becomes more difficult as we head into Saturday morning, and that could persist through the middle of the day. And then conditions will improve from south to north as temperatures warm up above the freezing mark, and then we'll see a transition to rain. But because we're going to have such persistent freezing rain happening, then this is going to lead to not only the roads being slick, but also crews having difficulty with keeping up with keeping the roads clear. And when we have freezing rain, what's actually happening is that it's raining, but it's freezing on contact. So that rain could wash away pre-treatment and just make it difficult in general for crews to kind of keep up with things. But we do have this situation where the temperatures at the surface are below freezing. So I'm going to back this up a little bit. And in the mid-levels of the atmosphere in green, temperatures are going above freezing. So in the wintertime, it's cold and it's snowing up above. Once it enters that column where temperatures are above the freezing mark, that's melting and falling down as rain, and it hits this surface that has been sitting at or below freezing, and it's going to freeze on contact. So that's what freezing rain is. And we are going to have the potential for several hours, unfortunately, of that freezing rain to occur, which will lead to that difficulty in keeping the roads clear and lead to the buildup of ice, unfortunately. So right now we have a quiet day ahead. So I want to emphasize that again. Nothing's happening at the moment. Clouds are building in, and we still have some time before this precipitation approaches us here, and moisture is going to be moving in. And I mean, nothing even really close in sight in terms of precipitation right now. It's cold though, and temperatures are sitting here in the single digits and double digits, and it's at least going to get warmer than yesterday. We're getting a little bit of a push compared to yesterday, but it's still very cold. The longer that we stay below the freezing mark, the longer those roads are going to stay colder, the cars are going to stay colder, things are going to stay colder in general, leading to the ice buildup happening. And through the day, temperatures hanging out teens, low 20s. And then tonight, something that's changed with the forecast, and another reason why we ended up seeing that upgrade to an ice storm warning is because we do have the colder temperatures expected overnight. So the thought was that we would start to see some more warmth overnight and that temperatures would start to rise into Saturday morning, but that's just being delayed by several hours. And so the fact of the matter is we're going to be well below freezing overnight, and that will also contribute to the initial ice accumulation. So that the precipitation is going to start to enter the western portions of the state after 4 or 5 p.m. and move into eastern Iowa around midnight. There could be an initial batch of maybe some snow or sleet mixed in, but we'll see that changeover as that warm air kind of noses in and will lead to that precipitation falling as rain, freezing on contact, freezing rain, persisting through the night into Saturday morning. And you can just see the extent of the precipitation and some of the darker colors where it could be heavy at times and really leading to that ice buildup. And that could build up on the streets, the sidewalks. Anything that's not been treated will likely turn into an ice skating rink. And then we have, on top of that, power lines, the mailbox, trees, stop signs, stoplights, and the winds too. You can kind of see these little lines of the wind. Winds will be picking up out of the east southeast, and that will also be a contributing factor to the possibility of there being power outages, tree damage as well, power line damage, and that can lead to sometimes sporadic power outages if those lines have been weighed down and they start shaking and such. That can lead to some issues in that respect. And the issue then becomes, when does this stop? And that was kind of the problem yesterday we were trying to figure out, and it continued to get pushed further back, but you can start to see the transition of the actual greens coming in. It's not going to be a light switch turned off and we're done with the ice. It will be a gradual change as temperatures rise above freezing. The roads will start to improve. We'll see a transition to plain rain, and the roads will end up just being wet, and temperatures will rise above freezing and stay near and above freezing mostly through the night. Now, this is going to happen from south to north as that warm air at the surface moves in. So around 10, 11 o'clock, close to I-80, we'll start to see some improvement. And then around Highway 30 in Cedar Rapids, it'll be closer to noon, 1 o'clock. And then Highway 20, it'll be closer to 2, 3 o'clock. And in the far north, the winter weather advisories go until 6 p.m. because there still could be a bit of a mix there. And it'll just take longer to get that warmer air all the way up there. So we'll have then the change happening late at the latest point there towards 6 p.m. But a lot of the area starts to see a lot of improvement toward 2, 3 p.m. And then north of Highway 20 just might take a little bit longer before it completely clears out. And then we may have some lingering rain showers into the evening. But the good news is that Sunday will be quiet and dry. But if you're especially south of Highway 20, there will be some opportunity if you need to get out on Saturday. I would just encourage you to check in with the, you can check on the Iowa's News Now WX app, or you can check on our website at iowasnewsnow.com to see the road conditions. You can see those live updates and you can get a look at especially the highways, but it's going to take some time once those temperatures start to warm for the roads to get completely cleared. In terms of accumulation, this is my latest forecast. It's a glaze to about 1/10 of an inch in the north and east. And then across the majority of the area, it's 1/10 to 3/10 of an inch. And there could be some locally higher amounts, but especially in that ice storm zone is where the ice storm warning zone is where we're looking at the 2 to 3/10 of an inch of accumulation. And that's where you really get into some significant icing, and it becomes pretty difficult to keep the roads clear and to deal with the ice in general. It's a lot, and it does not take much more than a glaze at all to cause big issues on the streets because you get zero traction from ice. So just something to be aware of is that it doesn't matter what part of this map you're on, if you're under the ice storm warning or not. There are just some slightly different impacts in terms of the power outage risk, but everywhere is going to have the difficult travel concerns, and not only difficult, but sometimes impossible if we're talking completely, ice covered roads. It's an ice skating rink it's not going to be a fun time for you in your car. We are going to also, as I mentioned, have the winds going around 25, maybe 35 miles per hour. That could lead to the power line and tree damage, as I mentioned, and the winds will still be strong in the evening, but once we can get some of that ice to at least melt, that won't be as much of a concern. Then I just kind of broke down some things that we can all land on here in terms of how to deal with this, because it's a lot of information. We're seeing ice storm warnings. Ice is terrible. Who decided this was a thing? Not me, but I just say if you could get your stuff prior to 10 p.m., that would be ideal. We could start to see a little bit of precipitation by then, but I think really close to midnight is when we're going to start to see maybe some of those slick roads developing. But if you need an emergency kit, if you need some ice melt, I know I didn't have any. We picked some up this morning just to have it handy. And I know that we can easily say like, hey, just stay home. But there are people that have to work. There's situations where you may have to leave. There could be an emergency. And so this is totally understandable that you might have to go somewhere. But if you don't have an emergency kit in your car, something that you just want to make sure you have in there, it's good not only to have during this ice storm, but also throughout the entire winter. But check your emergency kits in your car, at your house. Make sure you have the ice melt ready. A shovel if you want. I know sometimes it's like sand or cat litter for traction for your car if you happen to get stuck somewhere. But if you are in the zone where you can stay home and chill, and maybe you had plans to go see Wicked this weekend. I still haven't seen it, but if you have some plans to go out, maybe think about adjusting them. And if there are some events going on this weekend, I know there's a few things. There's like a holiday sweater 5K. It's happening later in the afternoon. They might be able to let it keep going. It might be raining. I don't think it's going to be terribly pleasant, but if some things are happening this weekend, keep an eye on it. See if things get canceled, be prepared for change, and then just stay home if you can. And I know not everybody loves to stay home on the weekend, but it's just for the best. And please don't call delivery drivers and make them drive in the ice. But if you can just hang at home and we can get past the morning, and by the early afternoon we start to see some improvement, we can be out and about, and it's going to be okay. But if you know you have to drive, if you have to go to work, if you have to go somewhere, then make sure you have the supplies in your car. Drive slow and stick to the main roads, stick to the highways. Those are the areas where the treatment is going to be more frequent, where there's going to be more plows, and that is going to really be the best for travel. But obviously you still have to get from your driveway, your parking lot, whatever, your neighborhood, to those main roads. So be prepared to give yourself some extra time and just really take it slow. Don't make sudden movements with your car, because that can cause some additional problems. And if it just feels too unsafe, then don't go. And just try and clear off the driveway, give yourself some traction, if it be with putting down the ice melt and making sure it gets cleared up with a shovel, or putting down some sand and such to get some traction. That would be helpful to kind of get through that initially there. But in terms of this storm, we do have an ice storm warning for Cedar Rapids, for Waterloo, for Iowa City. Tama is included in this, and the counties in the dark purple there are the ones that are under the ice storm warning. And then we have the winter weather advisory elsewhere. Everyone's going to be dealing with ice, going to create difficult, at times impossible travel situation. And if you've ever dealt with it before, you know that it is not fun and that it is not easy to navigate. And so the good news is that a lot of this is going to happen in the overnight hours, but it does bleed into that kind of Saturday morning time frame. And the big change has been, this has significantly been pushed back, where we're seeing several more hours of that freezing rain, leading to the higher ice accumulation amounts and bigger impacts into Saturday. So we are calling for Weather Warn Day Saturday, just to kind of highlight the danger with this, and just to show another example of the accumulation amounts. This is a product from the Weather Prediction Center that shows the possibility of at least 1/10 of an inch of accumulation, and that's already more than enough of ice. and there's like a 90% here, 95%, maybe, no, that's 90. And then an 80%, 70, 60. I mean, it's very likely across a lot of the area. And you can see right in that ice storm warning bullseye is where that probability is the highest. And if I increase this to the quarter of an inch, it's not as much. But this is where it could take us toward that 0.2 amount. And this is a 30% chance here. So still some fairly high odds. And I don't know that this takes us all the way through necessarily Saturday morning, but we're talking about, or it should because it's 72 hours, but we're talking about some decent chances here, unfortunately, of seeing some significant icing. And one other point I'll land on here is that this is the first ice storm warning we've had since February of 2023, and it's been 658 days. This is not something we deal with that frequently. We get those winter weather advisories and the winter storm warnings a lot more often, but the ice storm warnings don't come quite as frequently, and I am thankful for that, but it does lead to some big issues. And there was just ice out in Michigan yesterday, and there were crashes occurring, and I saw a nasty video of a truck running into a fire truck that was trying to help another car. I mean, these are the types of situations we want to avoid, and thankfully we're not dealing with a high commute time, we're not dealing with a holiday weekend, we're not dealing with a weekday even where more people are out working, but there's still going to have to be people on the streets. If we can stay off the streets if we don't need to, that'd be ideal. I'm hanging at home. I hate ice. If anyone has any questions, I don't see any, but I'm happy to answer them. We do have a lot more information at iwasnewsnow.com. We have some, details on the forecast itself that we'll be updating throughout the day. We also have some tips on what you can do ahead of the storm. And additionally, we have the information about what to do ahead of power outages and such if they were to happen and all of that. But the main thing is that this is going to be primarily overnight into the first half of the day on Saturday, and we'll see some improvement from south to north. And if you can just hang until that is done, then that would be for the best. But dangerous travel situation, unfortunately, with ice accumulation that could be up to around 0.3 of an inch of ice, which that's a lot of ice that nobody wants to deal with. But the roads could be ice covered, and just anything that's untreated is going to be very difficult to navigate. So sticking to main roads, having the emergency kit, driving slow, giving yourself plenty of time if you have to go to work tomorrow is going to be ideal. But for now, we'll have more updates. It will be on Iowa's News Now at noon on CBS 2, and we'll have more throughout the day. And Garrett and Kason will be providing some updates at 5, 6, 9, 10 tonight. And we'll be updating our social media platforms as well. And I'll be updating things tomorrow morning, so you can check in with us on our Facebook and our X pages, and we'll continue to give you updates on this system. So everybody stay safe, and we'll melt this ice away, and we'll get through this one too. But make sure you stay tuned to Iowa's News Now, and you can download the Iowa's News Now WX app to stay up to date with everything.